Now, what's going on with all the manipulation and price suppression that we used to hear so much about? Did it suddenly go away? Did it stop? Or is there something new going on? For decades now, we have heard that gold and silver markets are manipulated. Prices are suppressed by big players, and that is why they've underperformed. Now, we hear it more in the silver circle. It's a smaller market, so hypothetically, it would be easier to manipulate. But silver also has a lot more industrial pressure on price, manufacturing costs, and demand. That's going to move it in ways that gold just doesn't see. So manipulation or not, there are straightforward supply and demand factors at work in silver. Those are easy to explain. On the mysterious manipulation front, though, we just aren't seeing much hold either metal back lately, and that brings up a few questions. Has it just stopped? Or better yet, could manipulation go the other way, forcing prices higher? Now, before we take that further, quick shout out to Summit Metals. If you're looking for gold and silver, they have you covered. So whether you're looking to buy or sell, summitmetals.com. Okay, so as we get into this, let's just be really clear about one thing. The recent pullback, that was driven by a few obvious factors. The U.S. government reopening, the dollar ticking up, and a change in sentiment around December Fed rate cut. Those things were enough to push gold price down Friday morning, but that is not manipulation. I just want to bring this up because that kind of price action could look a little bit like the thing that I'm saying we haven't been seeing. So that out of the way, gold has doubled in 2 years. You've heard me talk about that a lot lately. The recent all-time high is near $4,400, and we are seeing consolidation between $3,900 support and $4,400 resistance. So if manipulation is still in play, it's not working the way that it used to, or the way people have said that it used to. And the big players on the other side of the trade, some of whom are typically getting blamed for that manipulation, are all calling for higher prices. So you have JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs, Bank of America, all publishing $5,000 targets for gold in 2026. So let's look at why it's different all of a sudden. Just for a minute, let's consider that if the trading desks at the big banks have the power to manipulate prices down, they probably would also have the power to manipulate them up. Now, look, I don't think that's the case, particularly with gold. I think the power the big banks have over the markets is less significant than that. But if you widen the lens to all the big players in the metals market, central banks in the case of the gold market in particular, why are they letting it run all of a sudden? Because it's a little strange that at this wider level, everybody seems to be on the same side of the trade, and it's not the side that keeps price down. I'm going to get into a practical reason that gold keeps going up in a minute, but first let's look at a recent interview with James Thorne on Kitco. Thorne was making the point that interest payments on U.S. debt now exceed military spending. We've heard that before, but that marks a point in his mind where the system has to be rebuilt. He called it a Bretton Woods 2.0 reset. And one quick takeaway is that he says governments could formally reprice assets on their balance sheets, including gold. He says something to the effect of, why wouldn't they write up the assets? And they're letting it happen. They want it to happen. He says gold price now serves a purpose on the U.S. balance sheet. I don't know that we would have said the Fed or the U.S. Treasury are among the usual suspects behind gold and silver price manipulation, but if we're trying to answer the question of why they're letting gold and silver run, when it might seem counterintuitive because it would be competition to the U.S. dollar and Treasury products, well, a bigger number in the asset column of the U.S. balance sheet is a decent argument of how the U.S. stands to gain from higher gold price. Speaking of higher gold price, by the way, let me sneak in some smaller coins. Okay, so that's the Fed, that's the Treasury. Let's move on to some of the actual usual suspects monkeying with prices, or at least so we say, the big banks. Now, if they've been suppressing prices for more than a decade, why the sudden shift? Now, I'm of the opinion that they don't actually control the price of gold and silver the way that some people suggest. I think that that's an easy excuse when extreme predictions don't work out. But if we just look at the intent and the incentive that the big banks have, well, they now have a number of reasons that they might want the prices to go higher. They have client exposure and asset management flows, ETF demand, they have trading revenue. Just look at it from the most basic level. When gold price is trending up, that's going to pull in more clients for them, and it means more money across their desks. So I said earlier that there's a practical reason that gold keeps going up, so here it is. Money is flowing into gold really from every direction. You have ETF inflows, you have institutional buying, you have private money all stacking up. So lots of reasons for that, lack of trust in the dollar being a big one. But it isn't that there's some man behind the curtain who suddenly stopped manipulating. There's no wizard who suddenly changed his mind. And add to that the pink elephant in the room here. Central banks are buying close to 30% of annual gold production now. So it isn't that we haven't been hearing about manipulation suppressing costs because the manipulators did a 180. It's more that that excuse just hasn't been needed. Now let's keep an open mind though. Let's say big banks can manipulate gold price. In the current environment with the banks giving $5,000 targets, it tells us pretty clearly that they expect to hit that. They want to hit that because they benefit from hitting that. How so? Well, I already mentioned the big banks have client exposure affected by price. So there is more than just credibility at stake for them. If they had any control over the price and they were adding momentum by predicting a higher price, say $5,000 gold, well, that would be a terrible setup for a rug pull because they would be pulling the rug on themselves. So to the extent that prices are being driven or directed as part of a wider plan, everyone seems to want gold prices going the same direction, and that's up. So Bretton Woods 2.0, whatever, maybe. That would be unrelated, though, to gold price itself. It would just be a way to cook the U.S. balance sheet, and it wouldn't require any kind of market manipulation to get there. So really, all of this is just to say that these moonshot stories that used to hinge on some kind of dramatic revaluation have really quieted down because price is climbing so fast. And anyone who might have benefited from lower gold price now benefits from the opposite. They benefit from higher prices. So there just aren't any strong cases for some kind of big brother move. Now, if you are a big believer in price manipulation, it seems like everybody now has the same incentive, from traders to central banks. So any kind of potential collusion points to higher prices. And if you weren't sure about the manipulation stories, but you still wondered who was in control, well, the past 2 years have shown that it's the market that's in control. Maybe gold doesn't require a big mystery anymore, and it's just going to do what it should. It's a crazy story, I know, but it seems like that's the way that it's going to be, at least for now. And let's call it good there. Let us know if you missed those wild stories about big bank collusion and government rug pulls. Maybe you're not missing them at all, it's just me, and I'm not finding them. Let me know. And then while you're in the comments, be sure to hit that like button if you found any of this interesting. Be sure you're subscribed with notifications turned on if you want to hear more on the topic. And if you're still here, thanks again for watching. I always appreciate your time. Take care.